Good morning from a cloudy, dull UK. Well, we're Herefordshire and Buckinghamshire, so I'm Aylesbury and Buckinghamshire, and Meriet here is. Oh, I just had a reminder. Sorry about that. Okay, so we're here. Yes, we're here from the UK. I'm Aylesbury, Buckinghamshire. Delighted to be joined today. Meriet Duncan from Herefordshire, hopefully imminently back to Buckinghamshire. She will be not neighbours as such, but neighbouring villages in Aylesbury here. And I'm wearing, so apologies to anybody who I wasn't going to wear this top for these because I think just seeing the first bit looks a little bit scary, but I couldn't not wear it because this is what we're going to be talking about today with Meriet's books. So we shall start at that. So good morning. It's still morning, yes, 11:36 on a Wednesday morning. Meriet Duncan from the UK here, talking about your books. So we'll start at the beginning, as we always do. And how did you get into writing? And can you remember the first thing you wrote?
Well, how did I get into writing? As a child, I always loved writing, and I gathered quite a few pen pals around the place, but the main one being my grandfather. But unfortunately, I now know through my two boys that I'm dyslexic, and I went to Watford Grammar Girls, and it's back in the 60s, and it definitely wasn't a recognised condition. I'm also, I probably know, undiagnosed ADHD because two of my boys and my granddaughter is. So basically, I was just a pain to them. And my love of English went unnoticed because I was graded always on my grammar and my spelling, both of
Mm.
which I failed at, and content was never recognised. So writing for me as a career was never in my head. I think, began to think I was just useless apart from these wonderful letters that I used to write to friends and the wonderful letters I'd get back.
Mm.
But with regards to the actual books that I've now written, that happened through becoming a beekeeper. Beekeeping changed my life. And long story short, a couple of years in, I thought the more I knew about them, the more I wanted to tell people. I thought, how can I do this? And I was inspecting the bees, and a little bee landed on my cuff, as they do. And I looked down at her, and I don't know why, I just, in my head, I thought she was looking at me, and I asked her a
Mm.
question. I said, "Are you looking at me, little bee? Are you looking at me?"
Mm.
And she fluttered her wings and she flew up into the air and came back down and looked at me. And this rhyme came into my head, and I carried on with it. And beekeepers, we keep notes when we're looking at our bees. So I didn't know what it was, but I wrote it down, and it kept
Mm.
going over and over in my head.
Mm.
Um, and this name, which I'd hung on to because I have three boys and a grandson, and I had asked my son if he'd had a daughter, what would you call her? And he said Betsie Valentine. I went,
Oh.
oh, and that name stuck in my
Mm.
head, so I stole it.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, so I just went back that day and I said to my husband, he said, how are the bees? And I said, I'm going to write a children's book, and it's going to be all about a little girl who, through the power of a magical rhyme, turns into a honeybee and finds out
Oh.
all about the importance and the life cycle of a honeybee inside and
Mm.
outside the hive. And I'm going to go
Mm.
around schools and I'm going to talk to children about honeybees. And my husband stood there and went, do you want a cup of tea? And so, and I literally started writing then,
Mm.
and I didn't
Wow.
stop. So that,
Because
yeah.
we're recent friends on Facebook, and I often see you in my feed, and all the things you're doing. Very very active.
Yeah.
We come to marketing later. We've had a bit of a chat already about marketing, but we'll come to marketing later. But I know, yeah, yes, you're definitely out there with, and it's such an interesting topic. Are you tempted to write about a non-fiction book about bees?
No, No,
Right.
I am a beekeeper. It's a hobby. I love the honeybees. They've changed my life. I give talks about the honeybees, but I only give talks about what I know. And
Right.
they're such a complex subject, and there's so much more to learn about them scientifically. I
Mm,
wouldn't dare tread on any knowledgeable beekeeper's toes by thinking that I could write a book about the bees.
yeah.
But, in a general way, where, in my books, all the facts are true. My talks are my books, but
Mm,
yeah, for children, the very basics. But the very basics during my talks, people are amazed by anyway. So, but
mm.
no, the short answer is definitely not.
Right. Right. I suppose there are so many on the topic already.
Yeah,
And plus you get to use your imagination. That's how it started for you
exactly.
with the bee on your cuff. So
Exactly.
it sounds, yeah, it sounds delightful. And the thing about children's books, I don't have children, so I don't write for children, but um, I think that they invariably they should be, as well as an entertainment value, there should be an education. So children learn without necessarily knowing that they learn. And given what we've had in the press over the last few years about how important bees are, it's a wonderful topic to have chosen accidentally.
I didn't choose
Yeah.
it. It came to me a bit like
Yes,
beekeeping.
exactly.
I call myself the accident. There might be an adult book which would be quite funny about the way I became a beekeeper.
Mm,
I call myself the accidental beekeeper. But I think bees literally, if you believe in that sort of thing, they were a gift to me. They were a gift to change
yeah.
my life in so many ways because
Mm,
I didn't choose to become a beekeeper. Somebody gifted me a box of bees, and I didn't consciously think I'll write a book. That little bee just triggered my imagination. And
mm,
yeah, so I feel that they were just both gifts, the books and the bees.
mm. And do you write routinely? Do you have because it
No, no, I don't have a structure to writing, but that's very
mm,
much me. I'm not a very structured person. I'm quite
mm,
chaotic. Um, uh, I do a little article in the local magazine and write various things like that.
mm,
And as you can tell from my blogs, I love writing the blogs because I love writing. But I don't have I wake up at 5 in the morning and I write till, or I always write
mm,
on in an afternoon, or nothing
mm,
like that. It's when that story comes into my head, I will sit down and I will write.
mm.
And if that's for, well, usually once I start, a bit like talking, I can't stop. So
What
yeah,
what
I'll
age
carry on.
you mentioned before we started the recording that when you sent your first book off to be edited, a family editor, that it was longer than you expected. What sort of age range do you? Because obviously the younger, generally, I'm no expert certainly on children's books, but generally the younger the audience, the shorter the book is, the
Yeah.
fewer words. Well, do you correlate the word count with the age you're aiming at?
Well, not being a writer and never being to classes and taught about writing and literally
Mm,
just writing this book, I didn't really know what age I was aiming for, but it
mm.
turns out that it's in the genre, it's middle grade, 7 to 9.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
so the children have got to be able to read. Now, I think my dyslexia really has paid off in my writing because it flows. I guess I'm writing the way I used to like to read. It's very easy. And
Mm,
within as I say, within each chapter, within the story, there are
mm,
facts that are all true about the bees. So they're taken on this lovely journey with Betsie, and
mm,
learning about the bees at the same time. So no, this one is 7 to 9, but I think it can go younger because if the pictures in there are so beautiful, not drawn by me, drawn by Tegan Sharad, and she really is half of the book success because she brought my words to life. And
mm,
if the parent or the grandparent or the teachers are reading it, um, if you're dyslexic like me and you struggle with the words, the
mm.
pictures will remind you of the story and you
Right.
can revisit the story. That was always important to me when I was a child. My sister's an avid reader, always was, drove me
Mm.
mad as a child. A, I couldn't sit still long enough to read a book. And B, even as an adult, if it doesn't grip me in the first sentence, I'm done. I'm done.
Right. Right.
And that's quite hard, and it's because it takes me a long time to read, so it's got to really flow
Mm.
for me.
Mm.
So 7 to 9 for the first one, but I think you can start it younger because of the pictures, and they'll enjoy it. And I think it can go on to 11 because of the facts. So I think
Yes.
although it's in that genre, it's broader. And then the
Mm.
second book is not. I think it's in the 9 to 11 bracket.
Right.
Um, yeah, yeah.
My husband's dyslexic, and he was thinking he went to school slightly later than you, but it's same thing. They just they didn't call him stupid, but they knew that there was something that his brain just was different. And he wasn't diagnosed while he was in school with dyslexia. But I remember when because we've known each other since we were 16, and in our parents, when he lived with his parents, one of his whole bedroom walls was science fiction. They still read science fiction now, was science fiction novels, and you could literally point to one, and he would be able to tell you the characters' main names, where it was set, and the plot. And he's fortunately he's always been an avid reader, and the fact that he couldn't read, that it took him longer, um, it didn't put him off, and he still reads constantly.
I
He
was
take
put
his
off.
iPad goes everywhere.
I was put off for many, many
Mm.
years. Not that I couldn't read. I mean, I could, but
Mm.
I would stumble over commas, and I just lost my confidence. And I can remember the teacher in during English literature classes, whatever book we were reading, she'd go around the class, and I would have fear and dread of her saying Merit, and I'd be like, oh. So I spent all my time not listening to what was being read by
Mm.
whatever child was standing up and reading the
Mm.
next paragraph in case she picked on me.
Right.
And therefore, when it came to question time about the story, I had no
I have
idea
no
because
idea.
I'd been trying to practice. So I did lose
Oh,
an awful lot of confidence with reading.
yeah,
And yes, I can read, and I obviously, but when I was younger, and I think the more you're picked on, and the more somebody in authority goes, the more you think, oh, this isn't for me. This isn't for
yeah,
me, because I couldn't
yeah,
lose myself at that time in
yeah,
magic of what books bring to us as adults and children. They were just a
yeah,
struggle for me.
yeah.
One
I
big
should have asked you this before we started recording, whether you've got any of your copies of your books with you
oh,
handy.
yes.
Good. Can we have a display?
Yeah, I mean, this
Can
is
we?
the first book, Betsie, Valentine, and the
Oh,
Honeybees.
uh-huh.
This is the paperback version. It does come in the hardback version as well.
Okay.
The hardback version was my initial idea because when I was a child, I these were the books that caught the color, the gloss, the everything, and then the illustrations inside, which were so
Mm.
lovely. Which, as I say, Tegan has absolutely captured the ethos of. It's wonderfully
Oh, yes.
illustrated and
Wow.
fits in with the story. My grandson, you see, age 3, he loved looking at that picture because he said, "Oh,
Mm.
she's the other way. And why is she so angry? Why is he so
Yeah,
angry?" I go,
yeah, I love
"Oh,
that.
it's not
That's
angry. It's a
oh,
she. She's a
yeah,
guard bee. So you can teach younger children about
yeah.
the bees, just with the
Mm.
pictures." But so that was the
Yeah.
first book, Betsie Valentine,
Okay. Yeah.
Honeybees. That's the 7 to 9, or I say 6 to 11.
Mm.
Yeah, and that's lovely teaching
Okay.
them about bees. And then the second book I wrote during lockdown, it's this one, and that's for the older children.
Mm.
Same character, but a bit like Harry Potter, she's grown up. In this book, she's the first one, she's very nice. And I remember a publisher saying to me, "Oh, she's a bit nice, isn't she?" And I went, "She's 7."
Right.
Can she not be nice? Oh, yeah, but we like
Yeah.
children to have not issues, but
Right.
problems to
Yes.
solve, and there's
Yeah.
got to be a moral at the end of
Definitely
the
still got to be
story.
conflict.
And I said, a little bit of conflict. I said, she's got to get
Yeah.
inside a beehive. that
Right.
she's got to get past the guard bees. She has problems to solve here.
Mm.
Um,
Oh.
but anyway, that was that. And then I wrote this in lockdown because I thought, well, she's grown up, Betsie, now. That was 4 years ago. She can now be 11. She can be
Mhm.
learning to become a beekeeper because her mother's a beekeeper, getting a
Mm.
beehive for her 11th birthday. And whilst learning about beekeeping and actually going inside the hive herself, the bees are teaching her how to deal with now little conflicts in life, a little bit of bullying at school, which
Right.
I got from a
Happens.
teacher.
Yeah.
Um, and, the bees teach her how to deal with this and
Mm.
separation, friendship and separation because she's going on to another school and
Different
things
school.
like
Yeah.
that. So the bees, so it's you're learning about beekeeping and there are sort of little issues in there as well.
Yeah. How did you find your illustrator?
Oh goodness, that's um, all my stories are so long. I put Betsie down. I knew the beginning and I knew the end, but I didn't have the middle. I didn't have her in the hive. Getting a child into a very dark and complex world and having them understand this, I found really difficult. So I thought, oh, well, that was fun for the months that it gave me.
Right.
Um, and I kind of put it to one side. And then one day I was down in Cheshire and, oh, goodness, I can't remember her name. Okay, of course I can. Um, uh, Yes. So I was down in Chesham and the Waterstones in Chesham had an author signing thing going on. And I went in there and there was this lovely lady called Elizabeth Valentine, would you believe? And she'd written a lovely book. And that's the bit I'm struggling to remember the name. It's
Mm.
about a cat. And I was looking at this book, and she came over to me. Obviously, we've all done book signings in shops, and said, "Oh, what made
Mhm.
you pick that book up?" And what made me pick it up was the illustrations. And I thought, "Oh, that's that." My mother was an artist. My mother used to draw like that, and I said
Mm.
it just reminded me of my mother's art. And she said to me, "Oh, what do you do? You look like you're a creative." I think I've got a hat on the back of my head or something
Yeah.
ridiculous. And I said, "Oh, I'm a photographer." And we chatted about that. And then I kind of said, I don't know why I did. I went, I'll start you writing a book. And she said, "Have you?" And I felt so stupid because there she was, an author published, etc.
Mm.
And
We're we're an amazing community. The
she
I
took
was
this
astounded
real, yeah,
how nice everybody is.
she took this
Yeah.
really lovely interest in me, and she asked me,
Yeah.
and I said, "Oh, I can't possibly tell you about it because I've done my research, and there's nothing out there like there. And if you've got a publisher and you've got a PA, you might steal my idea." So
Oh.
anyway, I told her that I'd struggled, and yeah, I'm
Mm.
not, yeah. And she just turned around to me and she said, "Don't give up. Don't give up. It will come back to you. It will come back to you." And
Mm.
about, I don't know, about 3 months later, lo and behold, a switch went off in my head and I could see it like it was a film. And I thought,
Mm.
I'm going to, oh, right, okay. It was like being a director of a film. And I started to write what I could see and that I could see what the children were seeing. And I
Mm.
finished the book. End of.
Brilliant.
Just sat there. And then my husband said to me one day, "What are you going to do with that book?" And I said, "Well, nothing. Yeah, it's got it out of my system." And he said, "Well, you
Yeah.
should do something with it." He said, "Why don't you look for an illustrator?" And I said, "Hmm." And as he said it, I literally picked up a book that was set next to my cup of tea, and
Mm.
out of it dropped Elizabeth Valentine's bookmark.
Right.
Well,
I'm a
there.
I'm a Nikon girl as well, by the way. I've just
Oh,
noticed your the manual. Yes, I have a red digital Nikon.
oh,
Yeah,
so
my dad was a
there are lots of
Canon
them
man.
out there.
It seems to
Yeah,
be Nikon or Canon.
Nikon
Seems
or
to be.
Canon. Yeah, big,
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, this thing dropped out, and I just looked at my husband and I went, "Oh my God, illustrator." And I looked her up. She was local,
Mm.
and just so many things came in. And then I got in touch with Tegan Sharrod, that's her name, who lived in Seaford in East Sussex. And I said, "I want to come and talk to you about the possibility of you doing illustrations for my book." She said, "What's it about?" I said, "Oh, I'm not going to tell you because I don't want." I was so frightened somebody was
Steal the
going to
idea.
copy
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Anyway, when I got there, she was lovely. She made me a cup of tea, and sitting were all the books that she'd done illustrations for. And the first one was about bees. And
Wow.
I said, "Well, you've just answered my question. Can you draw bees?" Because my mother was an artist, but she couldn't draw horses. She said they were really
Okay.
difficult things to draw. And I said, "You've answered my question." And that's how I got the artist Tegan. But I kind of feel all this thing that I say about the bees being a gift and the little bee landing on my cup. Elizabeth Valentine, Betsie Valentine was
Betsy
the name of
Valentine.
my character.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
mean, how
Like
crazy was that?
life is serendipity.
It is. It
Yeah.
is. Yeah, so that's how I found Tegan. And I had
Mm,
looked, I just didn't, I looked at lots of other artists, but I just felt if my mum had been alive, um, she would have used that sort of art and
mm,
colours and
mm,
and Tegan got it. She got that the bees had to be real. She got that they couldn't cry, they couldn't hug each other.
mm,
There was one particular picture in the book of the queen bee that she sent to me. I think actually it's the only pic. No, that's in the guards because she had them looking confused, and I said the guards are never confused. They know
mm,
what they're doing. Um,
mm.
this wonderful picture of the Queen Bee, which I'm trying to find, and she had the crown on her head. And I said, no, they don't wear crowns. Take that crown off her head. So now it
Yep.
it floats rather beautifully
Oh,
above.
wow.
Why could you never find? I should actually just know
Oh,
what page it's on, but anyway,
that's
there
okay.
she is. There she is.
Oh,
So
oh
she's absolutely
yes.
beautiful, but I didn't want it on her head
Yeah. Well, it's
because,
like a halo then, isn't it? You
yeah,
imagine people's halos to be just
yeah.
above their heads.
So it just had to be, the book had to be charming and real. And
Mm,
Tegan managed to get the emotion and the friendship between
mm,
Betsie and the little bee that she takes off with after her rhyme, the
mm,
friendship and the closeness without them hugging or, anything like
mm,
that, because bees don't hug.
mm.
She was great. She's
So
great.
had you decided to self-publish from the beginning, once you decided that you would do something with it when your husband nudged you? Did you decide that self-publishing was the way to go? Had you considered going
No,
traditionally published?
I was cocky enough to think that all the publishers would fall over themselves and say, "Oh my God, there's nothing like this.
Mhm.
We need this book in our lives. Every
Yeah.
shop should have it on their shelves. You
But
amazing."
bees have been in the news for so long
Yeah,
in
and
the last
there
few
isn't
years.
an
You'd think,
adventure story that, well, there are now, yeah, but that at the time, yeah, I thought it was really different, and yeah, like we all think we've got a bestseller, and the
mm,
publishers will fall over themselves, and they didn't. And their main concern, because I went to see three different ones, their main concern was because I wanted it as an A4 full color book, that would be very expensive, and who was I?
yeah,
And
yeah, that's
did
the
I have
thing.
another
The
book?
unknown. Yeah, it's
And why should
taking a
they
risk.
invest that money in me? And I
Mm,
think the fact that I said, "Oh God, no, I don't have another book." I never thought it'd be like a child, somebody who's had an only child. I never thought I'd have this one, let alone, go on and have another one.
mm,
And they were, again, I didn't, they just sort of. So then I just started to go to various sort of, I looked at publishing, and I began to go to conferences and looking at joining with, I can't remember the names of the companies where they half sort of publish you, you pay a
yeah,
bit,
hybrid. They're hybrids.
the
Yeah,
hybrid.
Troubadour and Matador and
Troubadour, yeah,
yeah,
went to
all of
conferences
those.
with them, and
Yeah.
I just thought, actually, you know what? If I look into this enough, I can do this myself.
Mm,
And so I decided uh, uh, to go down the self-publishing route, even though I was warned by somebody at the Society of Authors that you have to have very long arms and deep pockets to self-publish. Um,
yes.
and that was it's true. But what you do have with self-publishing when you get through the marketing and all of that is everything, every book you sell, you get the money from, and you're not
Yeah.
being given a pound or
Yeah.
whatever, and they keep the rest, you keep it. Just have to keep that ball rolling and the book selling.
That's the thing. I mean, it's sort of 50-50 with self-publishing because I was both. I was traditionally published with one book and self-published with the rest of the books, and then it didn't sell as well as they wanted it to sell, so I got the rights back. So I've got a bit of a frog in my throat. And I've just started listening to a podcast called Two Indie Authors. And they're both totally self-published. One had been traditionally published. They didn't the company didn't do any marketing. And he thought when he got his first royalty check that it'd be in the thousands. And he earned about £500 in 4 months. And because it just fell, I think a month before, and it was too soon to have a royalty check for one month, so he got 4 months instead of three. And he expected them to, because he was seeing that they were selling so many books. It turns out that they'd listed it for 99. This is Kindle, that they'd listed it for 99p, and it
Mm,
was permanently 99p.
that's
So
disgraceful.
Amazon, which is the lower rate, the 35%. So Amazon was taking 65% of 99p, and
Mm.
then the publisher was taking whatever it was, 40% of the 35p. So he was getting something like 8p a copy.
It's
So
so, it's so,
he was selling
yeah.
hundreds and hundreds of or thousands of books and got a royalty check for. So he asked for his rights back, and they actually were pretty good. They gave him the rights back, and he went self-published. And now they've both quit their day jobs and are working full time. In fact, I think one of their wives is the marketing manager and that does all the covers and everything, because they're doing so well out of it.
I
And they
think
had a middle
days
management
of
job.
being, it's like my son's in a band, and he is signed to a record company, but the days of being your own person and sort of looked at, oh, well, they couldn't find a publisher, bless them, so they're self-published.
Yeah.
I think they've gone. And I think there's a lot of published authors that self-publish. And I think unless you're J.K. Rowling and or Martina Cole and you're up
Mm, mm,
um, the publishers do so much, and then you're on your own anyway
yeah.
within that big machine that, as you say, takes all the money. So if
Mm,
you can get through the marketing, and I say unless you're J.K. Rowling or let's go David Walliams or Graham Norton, that they'll sit you on the one show and give you a good platform. Which,
yeah.
if you're Meriet Duncan, they're not going. You've got to make
Mm,
that for yourself. And once
yeah.
you get through that machine, yeah, then you're better off
Mm,
financially
mm.
being
Because
self-published.
you're still sorry, because you're still expected to do a chunk of the marketing.
Oh yeah,
And with some publishers, I would only go with a publisher if I know how good they are at marketing. It's like Boldwood.
mm,
They are the one of the top smaller. They're pretty big, smaller indie presses, um, because they are a marketing machine.
yeah,
A lot of authors I've edited for when I was with a publisher, different publisher, they've gone to them, and they you see them because they share a lot on social media, the authors anyway, and you see that their next book goes straight into number one of the entire Kindle chart because they have the name already from previous
yeah,
publishing,
yeah,
um, but Boldwood is a machine.
yeah,
So that the publisher would have to have a certain track record. But the advantage of being traditionally published is that it frees up time. If you've got somebody else doing it all for you,
yeah.
you've got the time then to write. And I think it's the weighing up. Do you? Because I'm a bit of a control freak. I love being able to set my price and do my covers and so on and so forth. Um, and if I need help, I can then pay for help. But I would like to spend more time writing. So I would like to be traditionally published with the more commercial books I'm planning on writing,
Mm,
so that I then have the machine going on in the background on my behalf,
mm.
knowing that they would have more of a say than I would perhaps like. But I was lucky with the publisher I was with because was given the choice of two covers, and one of them was perfect. So I was quite lucky. But I know even some top Jojo Moyes a few few years ago, it might be now, where she was on social media. I think it was Jojo Moyes. I may be misquoting, where she had and it wasn't an English book. It was one of the European books, I think, where they'd chosen a different cover for her, and I can't remember. There was something in it that where the character had the wrong color hair, or there was dog in it, and there was no dog in the book. And she was going on social media saying, well, actually, you may expect there to be whatever there was in the book, and there isn't. But she
Mm.
doesn't have a choice, even as a top-selling author. She
Well,
doesn't have the
that was the
choice.
other thing that they said to me was that they use their own in-house artists, and I
Mm,
loved Tegan's pictures,
well,
and so bit like a dog with a bone. I wasn't willing to give up Tegan and what she
yeah,
brought to the book.
yeah,
So that's not, what's our dream? That Pixar will go, that film that Paramount made about bees, I'm just going to put
yes,
this out there, was wrong.
yeah,
And yet children loved it because
well,
it was a very sweet movie with a very nice message. But the lead
no,
character, Barry, who, and all his mates who went off on, pollen duty with rockets on their backs, were
yeah,
boys. And
right,
the first thing you learn about honeybees is that all the workers are girls. So the major part of the story
mm,
read by boys, and I'm afraid they are, apart from mating with the queens, the boy do nothing. They don't need the hive just to mate with the queen. So yeah, hoping Pixar will go,
so
"No, not
artistic license.
sorry, this
Well, in
is
these
all right."
days, in the Me Too generation, there should be a second film where it's correct and all the girls are
But
doing all the
it's
work.
just wrong. I mean, artistic license is one thing,
Yeah,
but to have
yeah,
every single character in that book as a boy
mm, mm,
doing all the work is just
yeah,
wrong. So if you're out there to educate the children,
yeah.
get it right.
Miseducating. Mm. So, will there be a book three? Are you working on a book three?
Yes.
And does she age? Is she still
Yep.
11 or did? Oh,
To know
okay,
she's going up again, and that's quite difficult
okay,
actually because you're writing at into three different sort of sections. She's going to
mm,
be 16. She's
okay,
going to be doing her GCSEs, or 15, 16, doing her GCSEs,
mm,
and she's going to go off to Uganda and learn how honeybees help people out of poverty.
mm,
And so you're getting more into climate change and things like that with her, that she's sort of,
mm,
obviously her future lies with the bees that she's going to
mm,
realize when she's out there. And I actually went out to Uganda under the umbrella of Bees for Development, the
right,
charity, wonderful charity based in Monmouth, to
mm,
one of the first sites they did in Mbali in Uganda, and the manager of the uh, I hate this is my brain at my age.
mm,
Anyway, one of their managers took me all around, and I met the most incredible women whose lives had been changed by beekeeping, women of hope who had AIDS and HIV and were, I mean, bottom of the pile socially, especially out in the African countries.
mm,
And one wonderful woman, Josephine, um, discovered that it wasn't a death sentence. There was hope, and she went out and she found out more about it. She came back to the village. She told the women not to be ashamed. This wasn't their fault, and if they
mm,
went to this place, they would put them on drugs, and it wasn't a death sentence. And
mm,
these people were trained as beekeepers by Bees for Development, and they got their own
mm,
status. They could put food on their table, educate their
mm,
children, and be
mm,
completely independent, and their life was changed by the honeybees. And this, not just them, but loads of, she's meeting all sorts of people. So I went out as Betsie to
mhm.
as much as I could about how bees have changed people's lives, people living in poverty. So yeah, that will be the premise of the third and final book, because she's not going to go.
I did wonder what would come thereafter. If there's someone
Well,
at the
I think
door, so
she's
my
just going
dog's
to.
gone nuts.
Well, I say that. I said I'd never write more than one, and
Mhm.
I need to. Once I've moved, got, then I've got
Yeah.
so much going on at the moment in so many
Mm.
ways, and with marketing and with all the talks I give, because my talks are
Yeah.
my books. Um, yeah, I don't have time to write. There you go.
And you're a photographer as well.
No,
Will
I'm
that come in?
retired.
Okay.
But I just
You're
couldn't
not,
bear to get rid of my enlarger. And
yeah.
that was all the pictures you see on the wall was an exam I did for my associateship at the Royal Photographic Society when I very first started. And they were all in boxes. And when I moved up here and I got this beautiful office, which is in the garden, I
Mm.
found them all and I put them up. And I was going to sell my enlarger and I thought, no, I love
Yeah.
photography.
It's a statement piece.
Yeah,
Having my dad was a photographer, and he had five shops in the end: Amersham, no, Tring, Aylesbury, Banbury, Chesham,
right.
and so I grew up around
Brian, is he from Cheshire
enlargers and
Cameras?
no, Brian actually worked for him.
Oh,
He
really?
was, yes, he was. Brian was one of the lads there who, if it's the same Brian,
Yeah, I'm
was
sure it is. Yeah, I
yeah.
love Brian. He was great
Well,
to me when I first
when
started.
when my dad retired, the business sort of broke up into whoever one of the people working in Aylesbury then converted it to Aylesbury, bought that bit of it, and it became Aylesbury Cameras, I think, and then whoever was working at the time in Chesham bought the Chesham one, and it
Brian, I
became
would
Chesham
imagine.
Cameras.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Brian.
Well, there was a chap called David, not Dave. David was the manager in Chesham, and so I know David and Brian. Yes, Brian. Um, yes, remember if it's the same, I must pop down there. I'm only 10 minutes down the road now, so I must pop in and see if anybody is still, if it is the same Brian.
Yeah, yeah. I've just remembered, sorry, and I do want to get this right
Yeah.
because I've sent him out things. Rogers
Okay.
Wasabi, who was the manager of the Mount Elgin Coffee and Honey Cooperation. I want to get his name out
Oh,
there
nice.
because he took me around Uganda. Sorry about that.
Okay, that's
Um,
okay. No, no,
I
it's
think it's
absolutely
only
fine.
fair. He was so good to me to get his
Yeah,
name right.
yeah.
Who he worked for.
Yeah, that's okay. Well, we've got your because the video will go on the academy, and then we have a biography underneath, so we can always add in his details and their details, the organisation's details
Yeah.
in that. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. We didn't get to speak too much about your public speaking, but we will be catching up again, hopefully with an audience next time, to delve into the first Betsie Valentine book, and there may be a third one on the way by
Hopefully.
then.
But I have started
And
it.
you may have moved, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and you may be maybe just up the road then,
Yeah.
back here in Buckinghamshire. So
And I'd
anyway,
be
it's
able
been
to
a
join the Chilterns Society of Authors then, which will be, is it the Children's
ah
of Buckinghamshire? Which one are you from?
oh well, at the moment I'm just in the Society of Authors. I haven't. I know there's Hertfordshire comes up. I don't know about Buckinghamshire. I need to look at that
Yeah.
because I think it was East Anglia um, when I lived up in Northampton. So I need to look at that and see. I'm only just literally last night I was looking at Christmas fairs and craft fairs and things and getting out. I've been here 18 months, but I've only done one. I did a Christmas fair last year, so I need to look at being more visible locally
Yeah, yeah.
because
Well,
I
I'm
only
going to
know.
have to revisit all that when I come back. I've done
Mm,
quite well up here with
okay.
my talks and to schools and communities and
Mm,
at events, and they're always really well received because it's about the bees and what's not to love about the bees.
absolutely, absolutely. Yes. Well, we shall. Yes, we shall have to meet up in when you're here. Meet up
Definitely,
in real life, and
definitely.
I belong to the Chiltern Writers. There's
Okay.
a local writers group there.
Are they do you meet in the Wendover Library?
It used to be the Wendover Library. It's St Anne's Hall now. It's
Yeah,
just down the road.
I gave a talk, I think.
Oh, did you? Okay.
I think so. I went along to a couple in the Wendover Library. I
Yeah.
remember giving a talk in the Wendover Library, but I can't
Okay.
remember.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, the Wendover Library's shut at the moment because it's literally just shut, and it's open in the spring.
Right.
because they're doing a major, and I went in there a few weeks ago to chat to the manageress there, and she was so excited because they've got this. So she obviously knows it's going to reopen as this wonderful
Excellent.
thing in the spring. So it must be fairly
Yeah.
major if it's closed at the end of September
Yeah.
to the spring.
Yeah. Oh,
Fairly
well,
major.
hopefully I
So
can be a part of their opening. You see,
interesting.
I'm thinking already.
Yes,
My brain's going.
there we go. Absolutely.
Get in
Yes.
touch with her. Marketing all the
Yeah.
time. That's the trouble. You have to
So
think.
they have a there's a mini library now at the old clock tower,
Oh
which I
yes.
have no clue where that is, but it's in the town centre somewhere. So
Yeah, it's at the very end of the town
yes.
centre by the
Okay.
river.
Yes. Good. Anyway, it's been a pleasure.
Well,
So
thank
we
you.
will chat again in the new year. But yes, good luck with your
Well, thank
move
you so
in the
much
meantime.
for inviting me,
You're
or
very
I
welcome.
think I contacted you, but for agreeing to
Oh,
interview.
you're very welcome. Yeah,
It's
you're
been
very,
great.
very
I've
welcome. So
enjoyed
it's
it.
been a
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Thank you.